Hey guys, it's Cass, and it is now January, so it's time for me to do my December wrap up. I read 7 books in December, so this was actually the lowest amount of books in a month that I had read all year, but I did have 3 books that I rated 5 stars, so I'm not mad about it. You know, it was a busy month with the holidays and everything, so I'm okay with that. But yeah, I had 3 nonfiction books, 2 young adult fiction books, 1 literary fiction, and 1 manga. So we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna keep it pretty short and simple because I've talked about a lot of these books at length in some previous videos, so I don't have much else to say about a lot of them. So yeah, we are gonna start with the nonfiction and literary fiction just because I feel like that's kind of my bread and butter. That's probably why you're here, and then we'll get into the other stuff at the end. The first book that I wanted to talk about is They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. This is a nonfiction essay collection that talks a lot about music and culture and mixes in some stuff about like history and identity into it as well. I rated this book 5 stars. I made an entire reading vlog about it, so if you want to check that out, it is my like December reading vlog. I talked about it at length in there because I read it from start to finish in that video. Yeah, this book was amazing. It's super poetic and it's just incredibly smart without being inaccessible. You know, there's just a lot of ideas about identity that Hanif talks about. He's a black man, he's Muslim, and I just think that he brings such an interesting perspective to music writing and the world of nonfiction. So yeah, it was really great. If you are into like emo music like I am, there's pretty much an entire section of essays on bands from that like genre. So it was super in tune with what I'm interested in personally, but it also introduced me to a lot of artists that I don't necessarily listen to or that I'm not super familiar with. So yeah, it was just super eye-opening and I really loved it. So one of my favorite books of the year. I also talked about it in my 5-star reads video. So you can also check that out if you want to hear a little bit more about it. Next is My Heart Hemmed In by Marie Ndiaye, translated by Jordan Stump from the French. I started this at the end of that December reading vlog and also talked about it a bunch in my 5-star reads video. So this was another book that I gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I think that it's one of those books that is better if you know as little as possible going into it. I had just read the summary of it online and I feel like that doesn't give you a ton to go off of, so I really appreciated that because it made my reading experience so much better, not knowing what exactly I was getting into. But this book does such a great job at creating like unease and suspense both for you and for the main character of the book. It kind of starts to bring you closer to answers as to why all of the people in the village that the main character lives in all of a sudden hate her and her husband. So yeah, Marie just does such a great job at kind of bringing you towards an answer and then she'll pull it away from you at the very last second, and it just made for such a suspenseful read, which was really fun. I also really appreciate that this book doesn't really hold the reader's hand too much. I think that it's really subtle in its themes and leaves things open for interpretation, but I know that it brought up a lot of stuff about like race and class and superiority, the concept of shame, and just really asked the question of like, how do we come to terms with our pasts and how do we redeem ourselves for our wrongdoing? So just gave me a lot to think about. I would really kind of classify this as a literary horror or a literary thriller. It was such a page turner and I will be thinking about it for a very long time. I'm really looking forward to getting to more of Marie Ndiaye's work in 2024. Next, I have A Frozen Woman by Annie Ernaux, translated by Linda Coverdale, also from the French. I rated this one 4 stars. This is an earlier work from Ernaux, and it is exploring her struggle of coming to terms with motherhood and gender roles. This is an earlier work from Ernaux. It was originally published in 1981, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I feel like you can tell that it's one of her earlier pieces. I feel like her voice in this one is not as sharp and concise as it is in her later works. I'm thinking of like Happening and Simple Passion. I feel like those shorter books from her are just so prolific for how much Erno is able to do with so few pages and so few words. They're just so straightforward and just do a great job of evoking what she is trying to convey to you with as little page space as possible. This one's still short. I think it's just under 200 pages, but the language in this one is a lot more flowery and like, I want to say playful, even though this book is not necessarily lighthearted in tone or content. I just feel like she's doing a lot more with the language in here, and it's not as stripped down as it is in her later works, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just different from what I've come to expect from her. So this was still a really enjoyable read. I feel like the content of it really fits in with things like My Work by Olga Ravin, A Life's Work by Rachel Cusk, Motherhood by Sheila Heti. It's really grappling with those same kinds of questions of, you know, why is it Annie's place to have to stay home and take care of the child and take care of the house while her husband gets to go out and, you know, work and live his life. I feel like it wasn't super groundbreaking in the concept, but if you're into books that ask those kinds of questions, this one's a really good one to add to your list. I think if you're into Erno's works in general, this is also a good one to check out as well. It wasn't my absolute favorite, but I'm not mad that I read it. Next, I want to talk about The Prime of Life by Simone de Beauvoir, translated from the French by Peter Green. I gave this one 3.5 stars. This is the second volume of Simone's memoirs. I feel like Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter, which is the first volume of her memoirs, is definitely more varied and compelling, but I think that this is still a worthwhile read if you're a fan of Simone's work. This follows her from her like late teens, early 20s when she first moved out on her own, up through her 30s, and we see the publication of her first couple books. We also see how her relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre evolved throughout those years. They have a really intense intellectual bond, and they also were like life partners. It wasn't a like typical romance in any sense of the word, but they were definitely just so connected in life and in their works, and this really explores that. It also goes into a lot of her friendships with other intellectuals in French culture at the time. I think that the beginning of this was my favorite part of it. It had some really great musings on, you know, growing up and being on your own for the first time. And I also think that it's interesting to see her kind of reminisce about her early career and see her different ideas and her philosophies evolve. But there is a lot of World War II talk in this, which is not my favorite subject, but obviously I can appreciate that she included all of that in here because she lived through it, and you know, it was a very harrowing experience for her. It just personally wasn't the most interesting thing for me to read about. It got really repetitive at times, and there's just a lot of political and cultural references that didn't fully land for me just because, you know, I'm reading this a generation later. This book took me 2 months to read, which is really long for me. I did put it down for a couple weeks, and then whenever I picked it back up, I had to like make myself stick to a reading schedule for this so that I would be able to finish it before the year ended, because I wanted to be completely done with all of the books that I was reading before the new year. So yeah, I wouldn't say that this is a must read by any means, but if you're into her work, if you're into memoirs and you enjoyed the first one, you can give it a try, but I wouldn't say that you have to go out and read this right now. I will probably continue with these, but I'm going to give it some time and probably check out some of her fiction before diving back into this, because I have a feeling the other volumes of her memoirs are going to be more similar to this than Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. All right, we're making swift progress through these. We're gonna move on to the manga that I read just real quick, just to document it here. I read volume 5 of Nana by Ayazawa. I gave this 4 stars. I'm not a huge manga person, but I've seen this recommended a lot, and I'm just slowly making my way through it. I'm not like a super diehard fan or anything, but it is really enjoyable. It's just a slice of life about 2 girls. They are both named Nana, and they live together. One of them's in a band, the other one's kind of figuring out what she wants to do, and this just takes you through their friendship, their different relationships, and like misadventures with love. And I really like it because there's not like a fantastical element to it. I don't think that I would vibe with that. I like that it's just realistic as much as it can be and just really explores the connections between the different characters. So yeah, just like a fun, quick little thing for me to pick up whenever I'm in between books. But I don't have volume 6 or 7. I do have 8, and I have a bunch of the later ones, so I'm not sure when I'll be able to continue with this. I need to track down 6 and 7, but you know, just a low stakes kind of comfort read, I guess. The last 2 books for December are Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, which I rated 5 stars, and Mockingjay, which I rated 4 stars. These are the second and third books in the Hunger Games trilogy. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail for this either, just because it is part of a series, which I'm sure a lot of people have read, but I hadn't, so I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But yeah, I really loved Catching Fire. I talk about this one a bunch in my 5-star reads of 2023 video. It left me on such a cliffhanger. I was just like on the edge of my seat the entire time. Mockingjay I did not enjoy as much. I just did not feel invested in it up until like the last quarter of the book, I would say. Part of that could be because I was switching between reading the physical book and listening to the audiobook, and I'm realizing that audiobooks are just not the format for me, I don't think. I really have a tough time concentrating on them, even if I'm just like driving, which is when I tried to listen to the first part of it on audio. Like, I just get distracted so easily by whatever else I'm doing, and then I miss so much and have to go back and re-listen, and it's just not my favorite way to take in a story. So I'm probably not going to continue listening to audiobooks. I feel like I've given them a shot this year, and it just has not worked out for me. But I think if you are into audiobooks, these are a great one to listen to. I really did like the voice for it and everything, so yeah, just not my thing. But yeah, these have just been a really great way for me to like connect with my friends, just have like a fun, easy read. Since they're young adult, they're pretty fast, so yeah, just another kind of low stakes thing for me. I also watched most of the movies with my friends over the weekend, and I'm gonna say it, I don't think that they are as good as the books. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. I'm not sure what the discourse is there, but I think that having the first person perspective with Katniss in the books just helps to create that connection with her, and I just felt like it was a lot higher stakes than the movies because we were getting her thoughts and her feelings on what was going on the entire time in the books, but I just feel like we weren't getting very much from her as a movie character. I will say I did fall asleep during some parts of it because I was really tired, but yeah, it was just not my favorite movie experience. I will say I'm not a huge movie person as it is, so I don't know if it's just a me thing or what. I did see the prequel back whenever it came out in November, and I really enjoyed that, and that was kind of the reason why I decided to even read these in the first place. So I like that movie a lot more than the original ones, but I'm excited to get to that book in 2024 as well. I don't plan on getting to it in January. I feel like I want to take a little break from them, but yeah, I do have that, and I'm excited to get to it eventually. All right, that was maybe a record for shortest video that I've ever recorded. Sorry that there wasn't a ton of rambling in this. Maybe you prefer this, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, there is a lot of talk about these books in the vlog and the 2 like end of the year wrap-up videos that I did, so I didn't want to go on and on in this video with like nothing new to contribute. So yeah, I'm looking forward to January, hopefully getting to some more books than I did in December, but hoping to keep the quality of the books at that same level as they were at in December, but we shall see. Let me know what your favorite book that you read in December was, and let me know what you're looking forward to reading in January, and I will see you guys in the next one.